Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Omeda.City and how to find your MMR. I think that this is a question that I'm being seen asked a lot in stream chats. I'm seeing it in YouTube comments, and I wanted to give my thoughts on the topic, but to also show you how to find your MMR. What does that mean? What is Omeda.City? That some of y'all have probably seen this kind of like grayish, bluish tinted looking website. So let's go ahead and go to it. We have a website here called Omeda.City. Now, what is Omeda.City? Omeda.City is an API accessing website. Essentially, there is a server. I'm going to keep it really simple. There's a server from Omeda, the actual developers of Predecessor, that is collecting and storing and pushing out data that the developer of Omeda.City then uses to port that data into a digestible format for you to read. So you can go here. This is the main page of Omeda.City, and I'm going to search up for my name, Krashy. There's some other funny Krashy names here, but we're just going to take mine. So we're going to look at my account, and this is my account. This is me. This is my history. This is my matches. This is my MMR right here, 2418. My region that I like to play. This is me, right? For all intents and purposes, this is me, my hero win rates, etc., etc. So here's my MMR. This is how you find it right here, 2418.7 after my most recent loss 26 minutes ago. That's my MMR, and that's the short answer. But the long answer is that this number doesn't mean anything. And for console players, the even more complicated answer is that you can't just search your name. What you have to do is you have to kind of take note of people that you've played with and see if they're PC players. So for example, in my last match, if someone recognized that they were playing with me or they wanted to search my name, this player right here, for example, user 62985 or user 2A8F31, they would have to search for someone like me, Krashy, then come and find their account, and then you can click on their account and see that this player, whoever it is, right, is at 1863. So here's the kind of allure with looking up your MMR and why people are asking the question. MOBAs are inherently a competitive game, and with Predecessor currently in early access, a year after early access, it has no ranked mode. It has no competitive. The only thing competitive about the game are, for respective regions like EU's Fang Booth, which is a competitive tournament that has nothing to do with just, looking up a website, or for North America, we have the PCC 6 that is coming up. So that's actual competitive. This is the only thing that the player base has to look at, and rightfully so. It's why people tend to bring up MMR. They ask how to search their MMR. They ask what is a good MMR. But again, the long answer is that this number doesn't really mean anything. This number is and let me explain why, because I think that that's really what the topic of this video is. I wanted to show you how you can find your MMR for Omeda.City, but I also want to explain why this number doesn't mean anything really. This number is not tied to the way that the game, its actual self, Predecessor itself, is actually matchmaking and creating matches and assigning value to players. They have an entirely different number. My number internally could be, 1700. And so the discrepancy in skill, it's not a one-to-one, right? Like you can't look at it and say that like there really is as big a gap, because the scale, I believe, for internal MMR, from what I've kind of heard, is much more squished. So the scale is a lot more squished. So when we look at these kind of games where I'm seeing, a 1000 MMR player on my team who was AFK at level 1, by the way, versus, me at 2400, these numbers aren't quite really indicative of where the player is actually skilled at. And so then the question gets raised, well, how did Omeda.City get to this number? Well, essentially they're just using an MMR formula, and they're attaching it to the API's matches played. So for example, in the internal MMR, you actually have MMR variables. Like when you're stacking with players, your MMR is going to rise because it recognizes that you're stacking with other players, meaning partied up with other players. And so you have a kind of an advantage. So it raises your MMR a little bit, but on Omeda.City, it doesn't do that at all. So realistically speaking, again, I totally understand why people want to look at this number, but it really doesn't mean much, because this number is not variable on whether or not you're stacking or not. It's not variable on basically anything other than their own kind of proprietary formula. Well, it's not probably proprietary. I think it's probably based off of a current matchmaking system, but it's just kind of system that they've put on top of the matches. So what you really have is, you know what, I'm going to do a paint visualization like I normally do. Ooh, we got really bright. You kind of have like MMR from like Omeda, right? Like this is their actual MMR, and this is what it actually looks like. And then you kind of have like this right here is what like Omeda.City's MMR looks like. And what I mean by that is that like this is like the true MMR. It's like a little bit more squished, and it's just kind of like behind the scenes. And then Omeda.City's MMR just kind of like sits on top of that, and it just kind of is like much more present, and it's like the thing that we all look at. But the reality is that like this is what's actually accurate, and it doesn't matter because we're all playing pub games. And this is just kind of like a visual representation of what your MMR is, and you know how good you are as a player and things of that nature. So all of this to say, I don't think it's a bad thing to look up your MMR. I've recognized for myself that because I've been playing this game for a year and there's literally nothing to play for. I mean, I just play, right? I mean, I guess when new heroes are coming out, you can play to unlock the new hero. You can play for affinity, but I'm not a fan of that system. And now with the most recent event, I think the event tab for unlocking the Christmas items, that's actually pretty good. But other than like those couple of things to play for, if you really want to grind affinity, you're not really playing for anything. You're not playing for a free-to-play currency. You're not unlocking content. You're not playing ranked. It makes sense that grinding your MMR and trying to raise this number would be like a fun thing to do. So I totally understand it from a competitive standpoint, but I just wanted to make the video to, one, be informative about the fact that yes, you can find yourself in here. If you're a console player, you have to find a PC player to find your account, and then you can kind of like save the tab on your account most likely. If you're a PC player, you know, you can come up here, search your name, it'll show you all your stats. But yeah, not the most important thing to look at your MMR. Now, personally, I think some of the most important things that you can use Omeda.City for is you can compare your own stats to like that of high level players. Something that you could do is you can look at a really easy one to see how well you're doing is look at your farm CS per minute, 8.7 CS per minute. You know, between 8 and 10 is like really good. Something like that, for example. You can go into like the leaderboard section, and you can like or like the whatever this section is, I don't even know what this tab, the dashboard section, and you can like look at like latest pro matches, right? You know, latest pro matches, and you can use this to compare builds to top players. You can kind of see what other, like, you know, again, pro players or top level players are building. Probably even better than that, you can go to the leaderboard section to do that, because there definitely are some really high level players up here, because they play stacks, because they're just really consistent. They have really high win rates. So people that have like super high win rates, you can find someone that's like playing a character that you like. You can click on them and you can kind of look at what are they building, you know, like 2 days ago on Wraith, you know, what are they building? Oh, okay, maybe this is like a good build to try on Wraith, for example. And you keep in mind that they could be testing out builds, so you definitely have to keep that in mind. But it'll give you like a nice starting point of something to actually look at, other than just like staring at your MMR. Now, last thing that I think is actually decent to look at, and this is also variable on a majority, or like a number of things is what I'm trying to get at. It's your win rate. How much are you winning, right? Like, I play 95% solo queue, and I have a 64.5% win rate. You know, the reality for me, and I know this is always a controversial thing basically in any game that I play, because people just don't really like the truth, is that, you know, if you're above 50%, you're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good. You're winning games. You're impacting your matches. If you're below 50%, I promise you personally are playing the game incorrectly. Your macro play is off. Your builds are off. The way you're positioning around the map, your attention to the map, how often you're dying, something like that is off if you're below 50%. So these are the important things that you can use Omeda.City for, not particularly this right here and looking at your MMR. So friends, that is how you find your MMR. That is the information that I have to share about it. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I think we can have a healthy dialogue about this. If you just completely disagree, if you agree, if you're someone new that didn't understand any of this at all, maybe this is some interesting information, drop a like in the video and subscribe for future Predecessor content. As always, be sure to be kind to one another, tell someone you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.